So, who's excited to estimate repairs on houses, man? All right. Who here believes that they can learn something tonight? Okay. Who in here has some experience estimating repairs on houses? Okay. All right. So there's some people here that have had some experience. Okay. Well, Joe's been doing this for 35 years. I've been doing it for 15. I've learned a lot from him. I'm not the estimating repair guy. So I can basically say that I'm more of like the marketing, technical, put the deal together guy. And then our partnership is really, I'm the real estate broker, Joe's the contractor. So I've learned a lot from him. Like when I first got started in the business, now we are father and son, if you hadn't figured that out. So, you know, I came out of college and I was like, well, hey, what am I gonna do in business? And he's like, take this repair sheet, go out and tell me what the house is gonna be, like how much work it needs. Really? Like, I don't know. Right? I don't know what I'm doing. So he came up with a system where he, you know, actually made these repair sheets where you can go out and plug it in. Now, let me tell you, they're worthless without the contractor there actually teaching you how to do it. So Joe's going to give you the education in the classroom tonight, and then on Saturday, there's some flyers out there. On Saturday, free event at a real deal that we're doing, and you can walk through and you can do it. So where else are you going to get that for free? All right, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So Joe Locklear, guys.
Okay, what we're going to talk about tonight is estimating residential repairs. We're going to do some general stuff first, and then I'm going to show you a little spreadsheet. But what I'm going to show you is exactly what we do. We have a system that we go by. I have one of my renovation guys who's getting a little older, who can't work as hard. He helps me now. I have trained him to go out in the field, take our sheet and do the estimates. Now, he's not there 100% yet. He's probably done 100 estimates. And it takes some time, so don't think you're gonna learn everything about estimating repairs tonight, because in about 45 minutes, that's not gonna happen. But I'm gonna give you some basic information, and then if you come out Sunday, I'm gonna actually give you a form to use, gonna let you go through this house. I'll let you ask questions, you go through, and you're gonna do an estimate. And then once you do that estimate, I've already done mine, then I'm gonna give you my estimate, and then we're gonna compare and discuss, and that's how you learn. Think of this as a mini bus trip without the $1,000 fee. Okay, if you're on a bus trip, you do 4 or 5, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing that you do on a bus trip. You know, you get some education in the class, and then you go out in the field and you do some estimating. So I'm going to begin just by talking about the basics of estimating. And one thing you need to understand up front is that it is not an exact science. The formulas are not empirical. That means they're not pure math. You've got to go through them, you got to do some adjusting, and you got to add some common sense. And everybody wants a system, but systems are good, but they have to be tempered with common sense. And I'll give you some examples of that. Let's take a house. If there's a 1,000 square foot house, let's talk about new construction. 1,000 square foot new house, and you can build it for $80 a square foot. Then how much can you build a 2,000 square foot house for?
70.
How much?
70.
He's right. Everybody else is wrong. Because when you go from 1,000 to 2,000 square foot, you don't make the kitchen twice the size. A regular bath in a house is 7 foot by 5 foot, and it costs about $2,500. It doesn't cost, just because the house is twice as big, the bath doesn't cost twice, and the kitchen doesn't cost twice. So that's where some of the things, the common sense comes in. And you know, you've got to temper every estimate with some common sense. Everybody understand what I'm talking about? And you know, I just revised this sheet. Let me tell you why I revised it. I'm training my guy, and some of you know we're giving a series of classes right now, and Lloyd's in the class. Does anybody that's in my classes know who Lloyd is? He's a Puerto Rican guy that looks like he's going to kill you when he looks at you. He's the nicest guy in the world. But it's like, what's that guy on Breaking Bad? You Walt. Yeah, he's got that Walt look to him, but he's the sweetest guy you ever met. He just got that look. But I'm teaching him to estimate. So he goes out and he estimates, and I made this sheet, and I noticed that he did good on the small houses. On the big houses, he was way off. In other words, I'd go out and he'd be saying he could rehab it for 20 and it'd be 30. When I check on him, we don't ever offer unless I see the house. In our company, if I don't see the house, we don't make an offer. And if we make offers and they accept them, we always buy it. So I always look. And so what I did, I took this sheet in the last couple of days and I said, I got to do some adjustments to it to make it work better for him. And he knows how to work on houses, but he has no idea what it costs. Okay, so I have revised the sheet that we use, but you've still got to apply some common sense. And number 3, an estimate must conform to its purpose. And what I mean there is, if you go out and you're estimating a property, you've got to know why are you doing the estimate? Because you're going to fix this house up and rent it? Then the estimate is going to be different from an estimate that you would do on a house that you're going to fix up and retail it. And $125,000 retail is going to be a different way that you look at it from a $450,000 retail. Now, if you come out Saturday, you're going to look at a $450,000 retail house. But the way we estimate that and the formulas we use will be a little bit different, but I'll make this sheet so that you can do both with it. You just have some adjustments there, and then we'll go over that at the very end of class. So 3 things. Understand it's not an exact science, and you've got to temper it with some common sense, and the estimate must conform to its purpose. You can't estimate a little rental like you can a $450,000 retail house. There is no system that'll really do that. And what I'm going to teach you tonight, it's a way to go in and look at a house and be there 15, 20 minutes and come away with an estimate that may be within 10, 15%. And that's what we're going to be dealing with tonight. I call it a quick rehab estimate. Now, I don't use this estimating sheet anymore because I've done so many houses. Believe it or not, I can go in and look at a house in about 5 minutes. And since I have the experience, I say, well, this is like the one I did down on 3rd Street, except it needs a roof. We spent $20,000 on 3rd Street. This one's going to be $25,000. And once you've done enough houses, you get that in your head. And that's how you really, really become an expert at estimating, is by doing houses. And we'll talk about that. But an estimate's never an exact science. You've got to temper it with some common sense, and it must conform to its purpose. Okay, so to understand estimating, I want to tell you a little bit about project management. This will be real quick. We're going to go through this. I spent many years as a project manager. My last job, I was a senior project manager. I did a $1.8 million renovation. It started out at 1.4. We got 400,000 in change orders. And this was a government job. If you're familiar with the commissary and the exchange at NAS, okay, I did a renovation of that for the government. And I wasn't the principal, I was working for another company. And I had 2 assistants, and we had 3,600 work items. On an average house, you may have 30. We had 3,600, we did it in 14 phases. Each phase, we had to keep this exchange and this grocery store up and working, the commissary they call it, and we had asbestos removal in every phase. So talk about a complicated project. I mean, you should have seen the critical path on this thing was like 16 pages long. Okay, but I never finished it because one day I looked and I saw what I was making, and I said, you know, I'm tired of doing this, and I just walked away. Came back into real estate full time. That's another story. But I got it through about 90%. But so I want to tell you how contractors bid and what they do. The first thing they do is they go out and do an initial estimate. Now that would be, they have specifications that they get and so forth, the larger jobs. They look at those plans and they do an estimate. That's number 1. That's their bid estimate. They're going to use that estimate to bid on the project. Some of them will do the estimate at cost. And these are the ones that pretty soon they get a reputation and they can't get any bids out of the subs, but they'll have all the subs come in and bid, and they'll take that total, and that's what they'll bid, especially on government projects. You know how they make a profit? They beat it out of the subs. They really do. They come in and say, well, you bid 100,000. I got a guy who'll do it for 80. And they're hoping the guy says, well, I'll do it for 85. They just made a 15% profit. So it's almost like playing poker, bidding commercial project, because there are all kinds of strategies. I've done bids where we had an octagon. My Nice High School, I put the roof on Nice High School, the metal roof, and remodeled the cafeteria. Well, they were octagon shaped, and they were metal roofs. Well, the way metal roofs are made, you may have a pan, it's called a non-symmetrical pan, and they overlap each other, but they only go one direction because one has just a piece of metal, the other one has a cover, and the cover has to go over the piece of metal, and it's symmetrical. You can't turn them the other direction. So what I did, I went to the architect and I said, look, why don't you let me use a symmetrical roof pan? He said, well, as long as it's the same thickness, as long as it's, approved, I don't have a problem with that. You know why I did that? Because on all those angles, every piece I cut off could be turned over and used on the other opposite side. So I got that job because I figured out how to use a symmetrical panel so there would be practically no waste. I cut the material cost down by 20%. So, estimating, it's an art. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. Once you do enough of it, you'll see these things, and you can do a job for less money because you've learned how to do it, but it's in the planning up front. It's like Abe Lincoln said. You give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, somebody tell me what he said.
Spend 3 hours sharpening.
I'll spend 3 hours sharpening my axe. Okay, and that really is true in estimating. Do some work up front and learn how to do this, and it'll serve you well in this business. So the first step is the bid estimate. The second step is the project buyout. That's why I told you some contractors will bid at cost and try to beat a profit out of subs. The next step is buying out the project. Now the house that we're going to look at, I've already started the buyout process on it. I don't even know that I'm going to renovate it yet. I think I probably will because one of our good customers, we're negotiating with him right now. We're about 10,000 apart, so he may give us a binder by Friday and this house may not be available because he's really nervous about us having the open house. He knows a lot of people are going to come and look at it, but then I'll do it. But I've already started the buyout process. The big unknown with me was the value of what it was going to take to renovate the pool. So I got a pool guy. I was a good pool guy, got a good reputation. I got a price. It's got a huge enclosure, almost a 2-story enclosure. This is a huge pool. It has an enclosure. I got a price on rescreening the enclosure. I took my plumber out and because we want to add a bath, and got a price on all the plumbing. So, I've already begun the buyout project, but initially you do the bid estimate. Then if you get it or you buy it, now you're going to begin to buy out the project. And the longer you have to do that, the guys that are thinking of buying it from us, they said, well, we may get the money to buy it. We're a little short. We'll see what we can do, but we won't have the rehab money for a month. But we want you to rehab it. And I said, well, that's good because that gives me a month to do this buyout. And guess what? They'll spend less money if I have a month to buy it out because I'll be able to get like 3 roof estimates instead of 2. So that'll be good. But next, well, come on now. I don't know why we have such problems with PowerPoint in this projector, but we do. No, I hit the wrong way. You're not seeing this, but it's a pop-up window. Okay, let's see if it works now. Okay. The next step is renovation and construction. You've done your estimate. Now you're going to buy it out.
You've got a question.
Sure.
What exactly is a project buyout? Can you give us a definition of that?
That's when you actually call subcontractors and say, come look and give me a price. And then we call it a buyout because in commercial work, you may get 5 prices and then you buy it. We call it buying it out, buying it from the subcontractor, saying, okay, I'm taking your bid.
Okay.
So you call bidding it out and then accepting those bids. Once you do, like I'll use a color code on my sheet. If I think I got a deal, I'll do it yellow. And then once I've signed a contract, I'll turn it green. Kind of a code for me to go by. But that's what a buyout is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then renovation and construction. Now you're going to go ahead, you're going to do the renovation. Some of you will want to use a contractor to do that. Some of you may want to do it yourself, in which case you are the contractor. If you decide that you don't want a contractor, you are a contractor. There's gonna be a contractor on that job or it's not gonna get done. The question is it gonna be you? Or is it gonna be a friend? Or is it gonna be somebody that you pay to do it, to manage it for you? But, so that is the renovation and the construction process. Now, after it's renovated, you need to do a project reconciliation. This is the only way you'll have accurate estimates in the future. If you bid low and it costs more, you go and you record that. You take and put your actual cost against your estimate, and then you adjust it. You say, wow, I was low on the electrical, I gotta change these numbers. You'll understand this a little more when I show you the form we use. And you'll go back and we're always adjusting them. You know, and I'll even adjust like the cost based on if I know which crew is gonna do it, because I know which of my crews is the most efficient. So you wanna go back and make adjustments. You guessed at what it's gonna cost, you did the estimate, now you know, right? So you wanna go back, see where you were low, see where you were high, and then adjust that on the next estimate. General contractors that are good do this constantly. They have an accountant that does it. At the end of it, they get a sheet and it says right here, you estimated 20,000, it was 22,000. Or you estimated 22 and it was 20. That's what you hope to see. Okay, but you have to reconcile or you'll never really have good numbers. So what you want to do is reconcile that project and see where you are. And then finally, you want to update those costs for future use. That's the project process. Now, let's talk about the process that we do. And then we're gonna look at this form. We're gonna keep this class pretty quick tonight because half of it's out in the field. And now we're not talking about complicated estimates. We're talking about a quick field estimate. Quick field estimate takes me 5 minutes. It shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes when you go out, and it's 30 at the most when you go out to do it. So, you know, here's what we do. We list all the work items. Now, we have put together a form that has the most of the work items, but you can never get them all on there. One example is a well. You're not gonna look at that many houses that have a well or pool. You aren't gonna look at that many houses that have a pool. So we have an other category that you just write that in. Okay, so we've tried to simplify making that list. Now, I can do them in my head because I've got a picture in my head of everything that goes into a house. There's nothing that goes into a house that I can't see in my mind. And after about 400, 500 rehabs, you'll have that mental picture. And you may not need that list, but when you start off, you need that list because it'll keep you from omitting things and forgetting things, which I'm not perfect. Occasionally I do that. But the way we have our form set up, you have pretty much a category for everything. So number one, you want to list all the work items. That might be mini blinds, final cleanup, drywall, all those categories you want to list. And then you've got to determine, using our system, we have to determine multipliers and quantities. And an example of quantity would be windows, okay? Windows, maybe a big window's 400, a medium size is 300, and a small one's 200. And so if you have medium-sized windows, if you're not sure, just use the medium, and you have 10 windows, how much is that? $3,000, 10 times 300. Okay, but what a multiplier is an adjustment factor. Let me give you an example. You can have a little aluminum single glazed window, and it might cost you 90 bucks. You might put that in a garage or a carport, you know, where it's been closed in, not necessarily in a heated area. But the house that we're looking at, you may have a $500 window. So what you've got to do is use a little common sense in understanding the type of project, and then we're going to have a column on this form where you can go in and put a multiplier factor. Now, the multiplier factor can cover quality, and it can also size. A big window, you'd use a multiplier factor, and a high quality window. You might double it because it's a big window, and double it again because it's at a $450,000 house. And that you kind of have to learn as you go, but I'll show you how we do it. But you have a multiplier and quantities, then you're going to put those in this form. Now, they won't be the same for the whole house, Let me give you an example. In our form, we have 3 categories on the pricing that we've done, and it'll say small, medium, and large. And in parentheses, it will say easy or average, bad, and terrible. I forget exactly what it says, something like that, but it'll help. You can use it like on windows, you know, low quality, medium quality, high quality, but also on the size of the house. In other words, if you're estimating a 1,000 square foot house, and you know, you might go in and say, okay, 1,000 square foot house, I'm going to put mini blinds in it. And then you got a 1,500. I think I put the average square footage in. I can't remember. But what if you got a 3,000 square foot house? Then you're going to put a 3 in there because it's 3 times as big as that small house if you use the small house price. Everybody understand that?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to put wood mini blinds in, you're going to want to double it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we put these adjustment factors, because we buy the same kind of houses over and over again, most of the time. So our form worked well for that. But it didn't work well if you stepped off to do a retail, especially a $450,000 retail. So we added these adjustment factors, and that's what you would do next. And then you enter the values and do the math. And then finally, you add the contractor markup at the bottom and determine the total. Now, we put it in as a percentage. If somebody buys a house from me, I will renovate it at the actual cost plus 20%. This estimate sheet, the way the numbers are set up, it's going to allow you to estimate the cost. Now, that's my cost, your cost. If you manage it yourself, that's pure cost. But if you're going to hire a contractor, you got to figure how much that's going to cost you, and you got to add that percentage and then put it in the estimate. For example, if the cost is $24,000 or $20,000 and you hire a contractor, if it was me, of course I'm not interested in being your contractor unless you buy the house from us. But we charge cost plus 20%, so you'd put another $4,000 in there for the contractor's profit and markup. So if you're intending on using a contractor, you need to make sure you add that in. And it's right there on the form. All of this is going to make sense when I show you the estimate and we begin to go through it. Okay? So you add the contractor markup and you determine the total. Then guess what you do? You check for gremlins. Has anybody ever been in my gremlins class? I've only publicly given it once. Okay, and I think I came up with about 30 gremlins. Gremlins are things that come along, these little ugly guys, and they steal your profit. Okay, that's what a gremlin is. And you gotta look for them, especially when you're buying houses. And I'm gonna tell you the most common ones that most of us miss, just a few of them, that will cost you pretty big money if you miss them. And some aren't as obvious as you think they might be. One of the worst is the electrical service conformity. What does conformity mean? It means it conforms to code. Now, when this becomes an issue, is if the electricity has been off for more than 12 months. We bought a house, my birthday's August 12th. I called JEA, always call JEA and ask, and they said, okay, August 12th will be 1 year. So I knew before my birthday, I could remember that, we better call and get the power turned on. And I think we did that even before we bought the house, because I didn't want to go the year, because if you go a year, you now have to have an electrical safety inspection. Just the permit costs $150. Only an electrician can pull it. The electrician has to go pull a safety permit. He's got to go into your house now and make sure everything is safe. Now, everything doesn't have to be workable. Like, if there's a light that's bad, he can pull it off and plate it so that it's safe and they'll pass him. But there are a couple of things they look for. And they do this because they're trying to do away with some things and make houses safer. And one of the big ones is a particular type of an electric service. It's called Federal Pacific Stab Lock. I can recognize them a mile away because they have this little dial in the middle. I don't know what the dial does. And they have like some red writing. Once you see one, you'll never forget it. The UL has pulled their safety listing from the stab lock boxes. If you look at, has anybody ever had an insurance company ask you what the brand of the electric service box was? Urania's nodding her head. Urania we've done business with her for many, many years. Her and her husband own Florida REO, one of the biggest REO processing companies in the state. And so we've done work for them. We've bought a ton of houses from them, so she knows. When you see Federal Pacific, what that means is that is no longer safe. Now, yeah, you can pass it off, you might get by with it, but what if the house burns down? What if somebody dies in the house? Do you want that on your conscience? You see a stab lock box, you want to replace it. Now, you don't have to replace the entire service, but you've got to at least replace the service panel because they are dangerous. They pulled the listing because they had an abnormal number of fires with these panel boxes. So if you see one, you have got to replace it. It might cost you $1,000, $1,200 just to replace the panel box. But there's another thing to it. And you cannot have a service through the attic or any other hidden area on the city side of the meter. You'll see a lot of old houses, especially concrete block, where the meter was set into the concrete block on the rear of the house. They brought the service into the attic on the front of the house, ran through the attic and then to the meter. That's now illegal. And if you go through a safety inspection, they will going to make you change it. What happens is people try to steal electricity. They go in the attic where nobody can see them. And an electrician can get by with this because they know what to do it usually. They'll go, but they got to go up and cut the power at the pole. Then they'll wire the air conditioner into the service feed before the meter so they steal the electricity and don't have to pay for it. So now, if you'll Google it, you'll see some nasty pictures of some people that tried to do it and got fried in the attic. I mean, they look like a crispy critter. So they had some of that go on, and all across the country they said, okay, no more of that. You now have to bring the service cable directly to the meter can. And then you can go through the attic. But you can't go through the attic before the meter. There's a lot of houses. Grand Park is full of them. So we buy a lot of houses in Grand Park, so we're always looking for that. So that's just one to remember. That's one of many gremlins, but it's a big one. It's one people miss all the time. No Federal Pacific panels and no service cables running through the attic before the meter. So you want to memorize that and remember it. Another gremlin is structural issues. If the house has structural issues, you need to be able to recognize those. And in your estimate, you've got to add for them. Structural issues could be a beam that's sagging. Those are pretty easy to see. And if you're inexperienced, you really need to get some help if you see a sagging beam, because it could be the footers, it could be the design, it could be somebody took out a wall. I mean, it could be a lot of things causing it. Again, you can look around, crawl under it, use some common sense, but if you're not sure, be careful there, because that could be a $200 repair or a $2,000 repair. You're just not sure when you see a sagging beam. Sagging floors, off-grade floors, we've got some stuff on our estimate sheet for that, but you just want to be a little cautious. Those are gremlins that can cost you money. If you see old galvanized plumbing, what you need to do is carry a flashlight with you. Open the sink underneath, open the sink base, shine your light in there and see if you see galvanized plumbing coming in. Galvanized plumbing is silver metal. If you see silver metal piping behind the valve, you're going to have to repipe that house. Galvanized piping hasn't been used for about 45 years. That means it's at least 45 years old. It does what they call tuberculate, which means it builds up minerals. A piece that's that big around on the outside, most of it, you couldn't stick a pencil through the hole that's left, because the rest of it's filled up with minerals. If you go cut a cross section out of one, try it sometime if you do a rehab and look, you'll be surprised. It will really be tuberculated down to a small passage. And you do it, you make it leave it, then the house gets rented, and the first thing you get is a call. We don't have any water pressure. We can't take a shower. That's why. So just replace it. Figure you're going to have to replace it. That's a gremlin that gets a lot of people. They say, well, there's no leaks, but then when people move in, try to take a shower and then run the dishwasher at the same time, they can't do it. There will be things that don't show up until your tenant moves in if it's a rental property. So you got to learn to understand those ahead of time so you don't have to go back when somebody's living in the house and start cutting walls to replace piping. Okay, so that's one that'll get you the old galvanized plumbing. Now, after renovation, then you want to reconcile and adjust. Okay, see what it cost you as to what you estimated. Then when you do your next estimate, you want to adjust those prices. Your prices won't be the same as my prices. I mean, I'm what they call a charter member of the Good Old Boys Club, which means I've been doing this a long time. I got a lot of buddies, and they won't give me half price, but they'll help me. You know, they'll help me out. If it goes over, I'll say, go, well, just don't pay me for this or that, and catch me on the next one. So you won't start with that kind of a system, so you got to be a little more careful than I have to be now. Okay, that is the class part. Now what we're going to do, if I can make my computer cooperate, which I think I can. Okay, this is the estimate that we use. In this little block right here, we put the address in. In this case, I put 123 Main Street. And then I'll throw the date in because I want to know how old this estimate is if I come back and look at it later. And down here, we have categorized items. These are on the sheet, all of these. I have 4 areas here on the exterior. It's grouped into. Okay, I'm having to talk over somebody here.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Didn't mean to be rude, I just know I couldn't hardly hear what was going on there. Okay, this is exterior, and these are the items: siding, eaves, windows, exterior paint, woodwork, landscape and yard work, and insulation. Now, I have 4 items. For example, if I had to do a patch in a driveway, then I've got to add that in. So this may have been, maybe there's a well, I add in the well. So you can't just, well, you can, but it would be very long to have every item that could possibly go into a house. Now, I have another estimate form that's very close to having every item, but I don't use that to go and do a quick estimate. And we're learning tonight how to do a quick estimate. It would take me a whole weekend of teaching to show you how to do a really well-defined long estimate, which we may do in the future. But for now, this is the form that we're going to teach you how to use. Now, go up 1 row, Adam, so we can see the heading there. Okay. Small house, medium house, large house. Mild, like siding, for example, paint, okay? Mild means just a little bit of prep, pressure wash and paint. Average may mean, okay, a little more prep, you gotta go do a little scraping, do a little priming. And then bad would mean, man, you gotta scrape that whole house down. It is really bad condition. Everybody understand that? Mm-hmm. And that's why I have 3 prices. If it's, if you're doing paint, if it's mild, $1,000. If it's average, $1,200. If it's bad, $1,500. Now, I have a factor of 1 in most of these categories because this estimate is for a house that's about 1,000 square foot. It's the kind of houses we normally buy. But now, we're going to go out Saturday and we're going to estimate a 3,000 square foot house. So if it's paint, what do you think your multiplier should be? 3. Because paint is linear. It's big or it's small, and paint's pretty much paint. But then let's say that you put a 3 in here for exterior paint. Put me a 3 in there, Adam. Okay, now 3 times 1,500, change that to 4,500. Okay, this form is made to do by hand. I just did this so we could illustrate it. Okay, so now your paint's 4,500. But what? Let's use some common sense. What if the house is in terrible condition on the outside? Now you really should adjust that factor up. I'd say at least, I don't know, half again. So let's take that 3, make it a 4.5. And change that to 4.5. Yeah, 4,500, you already got it. But you see what I'm saying? You can use that multiplier to adjust for the severity of what you have to do and for the size. If you were estimating a 3,000 square foot house, most of these categories, you just put a 3 in there. Where might you not put a 3? Kitchens and baths in particular. Water heater. Water heater's bigger, but it don't cost 3 times as much. So you have to apply some common sense here when you use this multiplier. This multiplier is new. We just added it so that this estimate could be used for a wider range of houses. Because like I said, I saw we had a deficiency in that the guy that I was training would hand me a $20,000 estimate when I knew it was 30. And it's because, you know, he didn't have any way to adjust that for the size of the house. He had a little bit, but this is not a big adjustment, 25 to 35. Okay, so we added this other over here. And if you come with us to do this estimate Saturday, you're gonna see a lot of adjustment over there. Because this is a big house, and it's got some extra things, and it's got some bad stuff on it. It's gonna cost more. It's not gonna be a normal roofing job, because there's some other structural work. We've already done some of the structural work, but you know, it'll be adjusted quite a bit over here. So you would go through these line items, and you'd say, okay, we don't need siding on this house. This could be vinyl siding, it could be hardy board siding. It costs about the same. The vinyl's more expensive, but you don't have to paint it. So it doesn't matter too much what kind of siding you're using, unless you're using something decorative like cedar shake, or the stuff that goes on, you glue it on, it looks like brick. And we're going to use some of that on this house that we're going to look at. So just kind of keep that in mind. Siding numbers are good, unless you get into something really different and spectacular. You've got to be careful on expensive high-end rehabs when you do the estimate, because they're way more expensive to do. Okay, yard work, I've got $150 because this is a rental house that we're doing here. On the house that we're going to do, the retail house, it's going to be a whole lot more than that. It might be a couple of grand. It might be $2,500. So, because we're going to want to make it really nice, and it's sitting on an acre. It's a huge house. So, those are those categories. So on this house, we had some heat work. Now, we only had $250 here, and you see this is $1,000 and $1,400 and $1,700. I put 25% in the multiplier. Why do you think I did that?
Good shape.
You think we're going to replace the eaves? No, we're just going to do a little patching. Just got a couple of little areas of plywood that so you kind of use your head there. You don't have to use that multiplier. You can just look and say, okay, it's about $250 and put it in. Okay. Like I say, estimates are more of an art than a science. But I understand you have to get an idea of what some things cost, so that's why we put these categories in here for you. Now let's go to the structural. Run me up close to there, okay? Rebuild the floors, that's by room. In other words, if you look at a room and it's got some bad floors, maybe there was a roof leak and it's rotted and you got some joists, a couple of 3 joists and some subfloor to fix. We found that, you know, we can do a room for anywhere from $300 to $600. So if you got 3 rooms, that'd be, you know, according to how bad it is, if it's not terrible, then 3 rooms would be about $900. Okay? And if you come Saturday morning, you don't have to take pictures because we're going to give you the form. Okay? Then you've got a bathroom. Now, I put a normal bathroom, cost me about $1,500. That's snatch out the tub, put a new tub, tile the surround, put a vanity with a bowl and a new toilet, and bathroom accessories, which is a toilet paper holder, a towel rack, and a mirror. I can do that for about $1,500 in an average house. So, but if it's a little bigger bath, I put $1,700 on a little higher quality. If it's a really big bath, I put $2,500. Now, I can tell you, the house you're going to look at tomorrow, it's going to have one of these, maybe 2 of those, and it's going to have one that's going to be about $5 grand or so, because it's big. You know, it's got a big, long, double vanity, marble top. The marble's old, needs to be replaced. It's a big, nice bath. And we're actually going to add a new bath. So, luckily, I have estimates on that already from my plumber. Kitchen with appliances, we figured $2,500 for a small kitchen, you know, little 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house. We can do a kitchen for about $2,500. And that includes the cabinets, it includes the countertop and the backsplash and the appliances. Okay. Now we buy cabinets direct from the manufacturer, but I also have a cabinet maker that works for me full time. not all he does, he's a rehab guy, but in a past life, he was a cabinet maker. We haven't been buying many cabinets because he can fix about anything. He can refinish the doors, he can fix the boxes and make them look new. And that costs us less money, but you're not gonna have a cabinet maker on staff. So, you need to figure at least $2,500 for a small kitchen. And then 35 and 65 if they're bigger. Flooring. Now, average floor, about $1,400 for the flooring. You could use vinyl. I'll tell you, ceramic tile has become so cheap. If you can get decent labor, it doesn't cost that much more than carpet. We're virtually not using much carpet anymore, especially if you have concrete floors, because you don't have to put down a cement board underneath them. So if you have concrete floors, it won't cost you that much more to put ceramic tile in. If it's a rental house, that is a huge advantage. I'm going through my rentals right now. I had one go vacant. I put ceramic tile in. They go vacant, I'm generally going to put tile. I'm not going to put any more carpet in, I can tell you that. I put it in initially because it was cheap, but ceramic tile is $1 a square foot to buy it. You can have it laid for about $1.50. So, yes, sir.
Joe, what that's wood?
If it has wood, we can refinish wood for a couple of bucks a square foot. I'll refinish. If it's good wood, I'll refinish it. I've got a real good refinisher. But if I give you his number, he'll get too busy and he won't come when I call him. No, I'd help you out if you need. Okay, so that's flooring, and if you're going to refinish the wood floors, you probably want to use this number. It's about $2,000 for an average house to refinish wood floors. If you're going to put carpet and just tile in the kitchens and baths, this 1,400 number is good. But what if the house is 3,000 square foot? What's that number? Put a 3 in there, Adam.
Under flooring.
Use the 2,300. 6,900, right? Yep. I can tell you the house that we're doing, you're not going to get by with $6,900 worth of flooring. Why? Common sense again. What's the sales price of the house? $450,000. And you want, 99-cent tile in a $450,000 house? No. You may have to double that number. So use some common sense as to what you're doing when using this form. And that's why I don't give this form out unless I can teach you how to use it, because it will get you in trouble if you don't know how to use it. Drywall. This is per 4x12 sheet. Yes, this number is high. If you're doing a big project, you probably get it for half that. But you're probably only getting a few boards. If you're getting 100 boards, you could probably get it for 35 bucks. McDowell and Ariel, I don't know if you know them, they've been around forever. They're on North Side boys. I saw them at the diner the other day. And I asked Ariel, I said, what's it costing now? He said, 35. For you, 35. For everybody else, 40. But I put 100 in here because you're not going to get Waldo to come out and hang 4 boards of sheetrock. Okay, so you need to have that covered. So then you come down and spray ceilings. This is to have a professional come in and respray the ceilings. Entry doors, I figure about 300 bucks. Now, we've got some double doors. Be careful of that. That's a single standard door. That's like a metal door. If you have double doors, it's going to cost you twice as much. Plus, if they're decorative doors, little glass, this and that, doors can be expensive. So if you're really going to get in this business, you need to spend some time at Lowe's and Home Depot. Take a pad with you. Walk around and look at things like doors and windows and write down the prices. If you want just a rough idea, double it, and you may get it installed for that. That's just a guess, okay? But get used to the kind of materials that you're going to buy. I can send my guys to do a rehab and say, here's your budget. I will never get a phone call from one guy. You know why? He's been with me almost 17 years, over 16 years. He does the same thing in every house. We usually do rentals. He knows the doors, he knows the vanities, he knows everything we need. And he just goes and gets it because we use the same thing over and over and over again. We don't reinvent the wheel. Yes, something may be a little different. Maybe I can't fit a 30-inch vanity, so we got to get a 24, but we're going to get the same price range of vanity. We buy the vanities with the top and the sink all integral. That's the best deal. Goes in easy. You're not, cutting holes in tops and setting sinks. So we kind of standardize it, and that's what this form reflects here, but it is now adjustable. Okay, interior doors, $100 a piece. And yes, I know you can buy an interior door for about $40, but guess what? You gotta buy hinges, you gotta buy doorknobs, and you gotta pay the labor for the guy to route them out and to set them to match the existing frames. So, figure $100 a door. If there's 10 doors in the house, $100. Your average house like us, we have 7 to 8 doors. So here, I figured 8 doors, $800. Entry doors are more expensive. Again, they're about $300. Patch walls, this is something you have to look at. I've got a rental turnover, one of mine, I went and looked. And in the house, there's a gouge about that long, moving furniture that wide, and it's about halfway through the drywall, $100. You know why I put $100 on it? You may say, I can fix that for $20. Because I don't have any items less than $100. Okay, for one thing, I can figure $100 in my head, and $70 is not gonna change my estimate that much. So just make it a habit, put a minimum on everything. Because, by the time they mess around and do it and recode it, and sit down and smoke a cigarette while it dries. Okay, it's $100. Everything's at least $100. Doorbell, $100. Get used to putting a minimum in there. And you'll find in the long run, when you do this and you compare your estimate, you may still have been a little bit low. But if you are, what are you going to do next time? Adjust it up. Even if you're 20% low, and you just go in and add 20% to all the base prices on your form. Whether you use my form or your form, you need to use a form so that you can adjust as you learn and as you progress. Okay, those are all pretty self-explanatory. Let's move up to mechanical. No. Okay, we'll get to that. Mechanical. Okay, new HVAC with wiring. The reason I say with wiring, about half the time, you had an old air conditioner and it was put in 20 years ago when codes were different and the wire going to it is no longer big enough. Okay, so I always figure money there to run a new wire in case we need to. So most of the houses we do, I use Nick Baca. $2,800 he'll do an average house, new equipment. Now sometimes he gets used equipment, and if my buyer wants it or my owner wants it, I can get it for about half price. But it's only guaranteed for 30 days. You're smart to put new equipment in. And so that's what I suggest. If it's a medium size, a bigger house, or an even bigger house, about $3,500.
How would those relate to ton sizes?
They don't really, but this house is about 2.5.
Okay.
This one is about 3, and this one is 3.5, say.
What was his question?
Ton sizes. In other words, how many ton? Air conditioners are measured in British thermal units, and 12,000 British thermal units, or BTUs, equals 1 ton. Like my house has a 5 ton and a 2 ton, okay, because they have 2 parts to it. So, the average rental house is going to be a 2.5 ton unit. That'll take you up to about 1,100 square foot. So, you can kind of work the math, but the best thing to do is just to talk to your AC guy and just ask him, what's it going to cost me for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house? He's going to tell you anywhere from $2,700 to $3,500. The guy that says $3,500 will be there the next day if you call him. Okay? The guy that says $2,800 is going to take you a week to get him to come out and do it. Unless you give him 3 a month like I do, then he'll be there in 10 minutes if I say I gotta have it. Okay? And I'm really not exaggerating there. Once you build a relationship with these subs, you can get them to come to your job. I'll probably give him 30 a year to do. So I'm probably his biggest customer because he's just a small guy. Okay, new ductwork. This is if you want to reduct the house. $800 for a small house, $1,000, $1,200. Ductwork is not super expensive, and sometimes if you've got old ductwork and they hung it and it's sagged and it's pinching off the air, your AC guy's going to tell you. If it's obvious, if you open up the AC closet and you see it's all messed up, just add this for new duct. Don't do a partial fix the duct. Just spend $800,000 and replace it. Because if it's bad in one place, the chances are it's going to be bad in other places. And when's that going to show up? When the tenant moves in, you start getting a good heat load, they start cooking and doing those things. May have felt okay when you were in there working on it, but when they get in and they start doing things, then that's when it shows up. And we depend on regular customers. We have people looking at this big house we're doing that we're gonna look at Saturday, and we haven't finalized the deal, but we're close. This will be their 5th house they've done with us, and all they do is retail. They don't hold rentals. They'll buy one of our deals, they'll put up the cash, and then I'll go in and renovate it. They'll give it to a realtor, give it to Adam to sell, Adam will sell it, and then they get the money. They are true standoff investors. One of them's an airline pilot. I don't know what the other guy does, but this will be like number 5 with them. So, we have learned to go in and make it so that when they sell it, they don't have a big punch list, because that keeps them coming back, keeps your customers coming back. So, if there's any question at all, replace the ductwork. New electric service, about $1,500, because there's always something other. That's a new electric service, including the line coming down from the pole, or coming from the weatherhead. So about $1,500, but it can be more, because usually if you need a service, now you look and you see the lines to the range is undersized, or the AC, and you may have to do some of that. So that, you figure this, but it could be a little more. And I'll show you how you cover if it's a little more. Yes, David?
Blower test, I was warned about that. Are you familiar with that at all? I
I've
don't know
heard
much
something.
about it.
I've heard something about it, but
Okay.
my little rentals, they don't do blower tests.
Okay.
It's like for a certain size or this or that. It's a new law. I think they made the law so that AC guys can make more money. Yes.
So on the new electric service, is there a certain time period when something was built that anything prior to?
You have to look and see what it was. There is nothing that says anything above or after this date. There is something that says federal specific is dangerous.
Yeah, copper wire.
Copper wiring, aluminum wiring.
Aluminum wiring, yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to replace all the aluminum wiring in a house. They now make connectors that are pigtails. You can snip it and have these approved pigtails, and then you can get the house insured. It may cost you $700,000-800,000 for your electrician to do it, because it's a ton of labor. But a rewire might be $4,000. So you can fix aluminum wiring. Yes, sir.
How much are you looking for in like permitting for all that? So like your electrical or your plumbing or like any of the.
You're
like,
going
you
to
got
hire
glue lamb
some, you
that's
can't
in
pull
bad
an
shape?
electrical or a plumbing permit unless you're a licensed electrician or plumber. That's going to be in these prices and pulling their permits.
Okay, so it's including. So
Yeah.
this isn't just the labor with the material.
No, this is turnkey.
Okay.
This is a very simple estimate that you're doing to make a bid on a house. So you don't have time to get prices and this and that. And I'll tell you, subs are hard to get these days. They're not interested. You call them out once to price a house and you don't give them the work, and you call them again, they're probably not going to show up. So, you're going to have to learn how to estimate it. Then if you buy the house, now you say, hey, I bought the house, I'm really going to do this. Now you'll get them to come out and give you an estimate that will include their permitting.
You
Yes,
mentioned
sir.
about if there is a federal specific and 100 amp service and you want to get rid of that and make it to 150 or 200 amps,
That's
then probably
the-
TV not go ahead.
They're about $1,500, just for the service, the panel, and the wire. If you have other things like outlets, you'll also find that a lot of times you'll have 2-prong outlets. And, you can have 2-prong outlets, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? But what you can't do is change them to 3-prong outlets, because there won't be a ground. Now, you can fix that. You can go into the panel box and you can add a breaker that has a GFCI on it. We don't really, not wild about doing it because they're very sensitive, and you're going to get a lot of calls if it's a rental house. The power's not working in the bedroom. You got to tell them, go put the breaker back on, go push the button, because they do trip very easy. And they cost about a couple $100 a breaker by the time you get them installed. So that can get expensive, but it's still better than rewiring a house. But if it's got 2-prong breakers, you figure you're going to spend $600-800 to fix that. Okay, and if you go HUD, they'll actually go in there and they'll stick their little meter in there, and it tells them if there's a ground.
Yeah.
So you got a HUD house, you got 2-prong, you got to put those GFCI breakers in. How do you think I learned all this?
Experience.
You learn from making mistakes. Okay? You learn from having to pay for those mistakes. And after a while, you figure out, I'm gonna look the house over a little better this time. Because that's how I learned that. You know, HUD house, everything looks beautiful. Had to go back and put the GFCIs in because they would not approve it like that. Okay, so what we do, now we always put a miscellaneous number in here for electrical wiring and fixtures. Same thing for plumbing, water heater. We always throw a little money in, even if we don't see anything wrong, I'll throw at least $300 in each of these items for plumbing and electrical. This is not service, this is miscellaneous stuff. Because when you start with rehab, something usually is gonna show up. You know, power's gonna be out to a bedroom, because power's not on when you're looking at these houses, most of them. So always put something in there miscellaneous for that. And then here on the outside, this particular house, and this is a fictitious house, it's not really a house, I just did the estimate. If it had a well pump, put it in here under the other, about $500. Now, can you scroll up, Adam, and show how we subtotal by category? What I do is, like the exterior was $8,300, the structural was $4,950, the interior was $13,625, and the mechanical was $4,400. So on this house, the total cost is $33,275. Now, in reality, we've adjusted this estimate, talking about big houses and stuff. Usually that's gonna be 10 to 20,000 in the kind of houses we buy. So you come down here, if it was 33,000 and contractor markup, I put 20%, which is 6655. So your total cost of this, if you do it hands-on, if you call a general contractor in to do it, it's gonna be about 40 grand. Now, if you're gonna do it yourself, you don't have to put anything in here. Because that's what you should save doing it yourself. And then the next time, you'll spend this. Because you won't ever want to do it yourself again. Yeah, most of you, but some of you may be mechanics. I mean, I'm sure there's some contract. Didn't you say you were a contractor? Or you said you've done rehabs, I'm sorry. Okay, so you're comfortable doing them yourself. Okay, so you don't have to pay this. But if you're not comfortable. What's that?
I might start.
You might start. Okay, so this is the total renovation estimate. Now, we went through that to kind of show you how the form works. If you come out Saturday morning, 9 a.m., Adam gave you a flyer with the details. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you some forms, okay? And then I'm gonna let you ask questions. I'll roam around the house while you roam around. And you're gonna fill out an estimate. And then after about 30, 45 minutes, ever how long it takes, it may take an hour, then we're gonna kind of gather in a ring on the outside, because the inside's nasty. No, it's not that bad. But if you are sensitive to smells and mold, you might want to bring a mask, seriously. I don't. I have bad sinuses, which is a blessing in this business. But you know, the house is a house that needs major renovation, but it's a house that has a ton of profit in it. And you know, we're going to make a ton. Whoever buys it from us is going to make a ton. So it is that kind of house. You're going to go through it, then I'm going to give you my estimate. I'm going to give you a copy of what I estimated, because I've already done it, my walkthrough. Let me tell you what I did. I did a walkthrough estimate. Then I went back about a week later and I did a detailed estimate. I actually bid out. I've got a price on the pool. I got a price on the pool enclosure. I got a price on the plumbing. Those are big items in this house. Now I put it all together. And my quick walkthrough that I did in about 30 minutes was within $2,000 of my final estimate. But that won't happen to you in the beginning. That will happen to you when you go through the school of hard knocks like I've been. Done it wrong, learn, do it again. And what we want to do is to be able to help impart some of our experience to you that we pay big money for. Okay. And we do some other classes. If you enjoyed this and you learned something, later in the year, we're not sure when, we'll probably do a full day, or maybe even a day and a half on nothing but renovation, estimating renovation, getting it done, and maybe even a bus trip. You know, we've had a lot of input and we try to like to ask our members, you know, this isn't a club that's really just education. We're a networking group. We buy and sell from each other. I'll see people in here tonight that I bought houses from. okay, that are wholesalers. They go out and they dig up deals, they call me. I don't care if they make $1 million, as long as I got my money in there, I'll buy a house from anybody. I don't care how much they make. You know, they don't have to hide that from me. I'm proud of them if they make a lot, because I'm not gonna buy it unless I can make something on it. So we buy and sell and trade amongst ourselves. I have people in here that I've sold houses to. I have people in here that I've bought MLS houses from. So we're that kind of a group, we're doers. And that's what this group is about. It's not a social group, although I like all you guys. If it came right down to it, on a Saturday, I probably would go fishing. Okay. But, you know, we're gonna take a Saturday, we'll spend some time with you and show you how to estimate. So I hope you enjoyed this tonight. It's not over, mill around, meet, ask me questions, ask Adam questions. You know, let's hang around a little bit if you want, but if you need to leave, I understand, and I wanna thank you for coming.
Thank you.